To make the rose apple tarts, first of all you need to core your apple. So you press the corer into the middle, twist it round, and then you should be able to lift out the core. Next you need to make sure you slice your apples really thinly, because if you make them too thick it's going to be very difficult to roll them up in the pastry. So as thin as you can possibly do them, and you slice them, and then in a moment then you're going to cut them in half. Once you've sliced all your apples, place them in a shallow frying pan, and you can work in pairs to do this, so that you only have one pan going at a time. You're going to add then a tablespoon of lemon juice, and this is to help prevent enzymic browning. And then 3 tablespoons of water. If you then put the hob on and you want to set it to number 5, so a medium heat, and you're going to cook this for 4 minutes. So to set the timer on your cooker, press the middle button, press the plus, and you've set it for 4 minutes. And then you can leave your apples to cook, and then whilst they're cooking you can prepare your pastry. To roll out your pastry, first of all, put some flour on your table and also on your rolling pin. This is just going to prevent your pastry from sticking. Try not to use too much, but enough so that your pastry isn't going to stick. You're going to roll your pastry out then lengthways. You probably want it to be about as long as a 30cm ruler. And once you've got the right length, you can then roll it the other way so that you make it slightly wider. And we're aiming to get enough pastry for 3 apple roses. So the width is going to need to be about 18 centimetres. So we're almost there. So each strip then is going to be roughly 6 centimetres in width for rolling up the apples. Now you have the right width, you need to divide your pastry lengthways into 3 even sized pieces. So you can use a ruler to help you, and then you're going to once they're divided, cut all the way down the length of your pastry. So you will eventually end up with 3 apple roses. So now you've got your 3 pastry strips, you're first going to brush it with some apricot jam. This is just going to help the apples to stick to the pastry and help the pastry to stick when you roll everything up together. The apples should be almost done. Once the time is up from those, you're going to carefully scoop them out of the pan and onto a chopping board. Use a frying slice to carefully lift your apples out onto a chopping board, and then they will be ready for you to use on your pastry. Notice that the apple slices are nice and thin because they'll be much easier when you are rolling up. So you need to take each apple slice one at a time, place it on your pastry, but so that about 1/3 of the apple is sticking up over the edge of the pastry, and you're going to be overlapping these slices as well. We don't want any gaps between each slice. Next, you're going to fold the bottom half of the pastry up over the apple. So they go in, it goes about halfway up the apple slice, and then try and press that down so that the pastry sticks to the apple. Then starting at one end, you need to make sure that you start off rolling really tightly. So if you grab your first edge, press it in, and then you may need to just use your fingers to guide the apple slices into place, pressing the pastry down as you go. And as you roll, then you will see that you will get a lovely rose shape. Occasionally you might need to tuck the apple slice inside the pastry to make sure you've got a nice neat finish, and at the end you can lift the last piece up to join together, and there you have one apple rose ready to bake. To bake your slices, place a square of greaseproof paper into a muffin tin. Or put your pastry on top first, actually. That's going to be much easier to get it into the tin. And then you place it in the muffin tin and just push it down gently so that the bottom of the pastry is touching the tin. And then you can use your remaining pastry and your slices to make some more, and then they're going to bake in the oven. Just a quick recap on how to actually assemble your apple rose slices. So remember to brush with apricot jam. That is going to help your apple stick to the pastry. And then you're going to select your slices of apple. So remember, they need to be nice and thin so that your apple roses aren't too chunky when you make them. So they're overlapping as you go. Okay, so now when you come to fold, you're going to fold up half of your pastry to meet your apples, and then just press it down. And then when you start off, if you squeeze your pastry at one end, it's going to help you when you're rolling. And then you just lift one edge and then fold your pastry piece over, and then as you go, tuck the pastry in, and if you need to, just coax the apples into going where you want them to go, and roll up as tightly as you can. And then bring your last piece up to join and press your end of your pastry. And there you have your apple rose. You could, if you wanted to, sprinkle that with cinnamon just for added flavour. And then they're going to bake in the oven at 190 degrees for approximately 20 to 25 minutes. This is how your tarts will look when they come out of the oven. So you'll notice the pastry is nice and golden brown and crisp. If you wanted to, then you could always dust them with a bit of icing sugar just to finish them off.